Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to day 2 of the Regions 9 and 10 virtual Tribal TANF and new meeting. My name is Sam Stitt. I am a Tribal TANF program specialist out of Region 10, the Seattle office. If you're joining us for the second day, if you missed the first day, just an FYI, we will have the PowerPoints or the presentations available, as well as the resource guides. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the agenda, give you a run of the day, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague Mika for the first real session. We'll do an icebreaker as well. But day 2 is going to be from around 1 to 4:15. We'll do a, could you go to the next slide real quick? I want to make sure I get the logistics here too. Okay, so here's a day 2 overview. We'll start off with an icebreaker session for a few minutes, and then a peer-to-peer session, which has a variety of topics. Looks like there's 9 different topics, and it runs the gamut. It's a variety of things. Murdered. I'm just going to highlight a few things that look interesting. Murdered and missing Indigenous women or people in TANF. Engaging youth in training and employment, establishing, growing, maintaining partnerships, a whole bunch of different topics that you could choose from. And we'll have subject matter experts in each of these breakout rooms. And then as well as ACF staff, Tribal TANF and new programs, basically doing a brainstorming kind of session. And
Oops, Sam, I think you went on mute.
When did I go on mute?
After you said brainstorming. So it's just been, yeah, so just back up just a tiny bit.
Yeah, okay, thank you. After the peer-to-peer session, and I love the landscapers have perfect timing. They're right outside my window, so hopefully you don't hear that. But after the peer-to-peer, we're gonna go into the Fiscal 101. That's from 2:30 to 3:30. Like a 101 college course is going to be sort of an entry level or a basic overview of fiscal issues. And we'll have John Ajiman from Region 9 Office of Grants Management. He's a grant specialist out of Region 9. We're lucky to have him because even though we're going to do an overview, if you have very specific questions, we have an OGM guy that you can ask those questions to. It will be kind of geared to the fiscal, but also from a programmatic lens for directors or social services kind of folks that want to know more about the fiscal side. And then after that, we'll go into from 3:30 to 3:45. We'll do participant submitted short videos. That'll go about 15 minutes. We have a variety of videos from different grantees from the regions. And then from 3:45 to 4, we'll do the wrap up and closing with Jennifer from Region 9. All right, next slide. Could we forward and then come back to the icebreaker real quick? I want to just do the logistics real quick. Okay, so this is for a reminder and also for folks that may be joining us for day 2, they missed day 1. As I mentioned, the agenda, speakers bios, and the PowerPoints are available on the Visible website. Please remain on mute until requested. If necessary, please rename yourself for discussion purposes. Captions are available by clicking more and then show subtitle. You may submit your questions for presenters via the chat box at any time. And just to expand on that, please feel free to interject at any time. I think I've talked with all the presenters and they actually kind of like when someone can interject some kind of interesting point. So please feel free, and we'll have staff monitoring and we'll interject when it's appropriate. So we'll get your questions answered. And also please complete the evaluation survey poll at the end of each day. That's very helpful. And if you need technical assistance, please send a message in the chat box and the tech support folks will be able to help you. Okay, let's go back to those icebreakers. And again, I have landscapers right on my window. So, okay, so we have 2 questions. And for this, if you want to type in the chat box, that's fine. And if we have any brave souls that want to share, get on the mic or the video, it's kind of tricky to do this virtually, but it is nice to see your faces and talk directly. But anyway, so what is your favorite summer tradition? Let's hit these one at a time. Let's see what we got. What's your favorite summer tradition? And I'll just go real quick before people start typing. I've moved around so much, I realized that I don't have a summer tradition that I do every single year for many years in a row, but when I'm in a particular place, I might have a tradition in that area. So when I moved up to the Northwest, I hit a lot of powwows up here every summer. I do the powwow circuit. Powwow time. We got some powwow folks. Nice. Oh, these are going so fast. Mushroom hunting, huckleberry or blueberry, huckleberry picking, camping, swimming, frozen cups. Is that like a dessert? Frozen cups, swimming, yeah. Powwows. People are lucky enough to be by the beach. Of course, if you're up in Washington or Alaska, you can't really go swimming anyway. Or you can for a few minutes before you have to get out, or you'll die. Oh, it's like a snowball. Okay, there you go. Summer solstice, that looks like some kind of a traditional tribal ceremonial kind of thing. Everyone's loving the beach and the river. I didn't grow up around any ocean, so it kind of freaks me out. I do like swimming in rivers though, because you can see the bottom usually. Yep, everyone's going to the beach, right on. Seasonal ceremonies, yeah. It's interesting. Some tribes have their ceremonies, like in the Northwest. When I moved up here, I realized that a lot of the tribes do winter ceremonies up here. But you also have, in the summer here, you have what's called canoe journeys, which is huge. So all the coastal tribes that have the canoeing tradition, they do that. Big journeys, and different tribes host it. Okay, let's go over to the second one. Tell us something about your program or work that brings you pride or fulfillment. Cold beers, Sean. Yeah, that sounds great. And I'll start on this one as well. One thing that I love about working Tribal TANF is I'm a tribal member enrolled with Choctaw Nation, and even though I'm a Fed, I feel lucky that I get to work with tribes, and I really think that I'm working for tribes too. So I love visiting, traveling around. I'm very lucky. Yeah, TANF, watching our children growing up and making good choices. Yeah, that's great. Very good. Getting to know the families. You're on the front lines working with the community. That's great. I love when our clients graduate high school or college, and then some of the clients become Tribal TANF employees. That's awesome. Permanent employment for participants. Working for my tribe, building relationships. Sorry, I'm trying to read these as they scroll, so I'm not a fast reader, but I'll give you the gist. Serving our Indian families and children. Food preservation classes, fish canning class, going clam digging. Yeah, that's the cool thing about Tribal TANF that's different than state, is that you can really do those cultural things. Helping our tribal people reach their goals, strengthening our families and communities. Food bank during Food Distribution Day. Oh, that's an awesome tradition. Watching participants become financially secure. That's a very good tradition. Okay. And I think the chats are kind of slowing down, and we're coming up on perfect timing. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mika to run into the peer-to-peer sessions. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Sam. And thanks everyone for contributing there. It was really beautiful to see everything that motivates you all and all the wonderful summer traditions. And Sam, you did such a great job facilitating that. Thanks. Well, I am excited to introduce this session. I know this is something that everybody enjoys, is that opportunity to be able to network, to connect, to learn from what's going on with your peers. And we're doing it a little bit differently this time. So this session is it's the peer-to-peer session, but we're also calling it an Energizer. And in each one of these 9 rooms, you'll have the opportunity to choose 2 of them. We're going to start out with 1, and you'll be going into a breakout room. So you'll get that option in just a little bit. But first, just to lay things out a little bit, the purpose of this particular session is to provide the opportunity, a collaborative and safe space to brainstorm together to address a shared challenge or topic and produce or create a helpful resource to take away from the meeting. So the idea really is to be focusing on that takeaway. Please get your paper and your pencil out and write down any resources that you hear about, ideas, or any framework that you really enjoy as a takeaway from that conversation. And that can both be from the participants that are in the meeting. We really want to encourage you to come off mute, to share what's going on in your community and your ideas. And you'll also be hearing from a subject matter expert who is going to be able to share some of their ideas to kind of get things going and provide some of a framework depending on the topic. So logistically, though, you will, there are these 9 different topics, separate breakout rooms. Each will have their own Zoom room, and you're going to select one, and then you're going to enter into that room. You'll be in there for about 35 minutes. And then, and when you enter into the room, it's possible that there will be a very large number of people. If it ends up being over 20 people that are in the room, please, you're welcome to make the decision to come back to the main room and choose a different breakout. So that if you want a smaller setting, we definitely want to welcome you to do that. And then, so you'll choose, we've got some breakout instructions here. This is going to appear on your screen, the breakout room menu. You join by clicking on the room that you want to enter. It corresponds to the title of the breakout room. And then if you don't see the breakout room menu, please click the breakout room icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you don't see the breakout room menu, please indicate that in the chat box and we can assist you. And then after that, just a small preview, we're going to draw everybody back into the main room for a really short little debrief as we're preparing for the second peer-to-peer session. So you'll get that second opportunity to choose another room. So that's how this is going to go. We hope everybody enjoys this, what we pulled together here for this Energizer session. So I believe at the bottom of your screen, this may be an option now. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Yes, I think they should be coming up as an option now. Thanks so much. See you soon.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Again, my name is Sam Stitt. I'm with Region 10, Tribal TANF specialist out of the Seattle office. And with me today is John Ajamang from the Office of Grants Management, and he's out of Region 9. So this session is a Fiscal 101, and if you've ever taken a 101 college course, you know it's an introductory or a basic course. We're going to have about an hour to do that, but I just want to say up front, we have a lot of ground to cover, but if you have any specific questions, please feel free to type your questions into the chat, and then I'll try to interject at some point. I want to make sure that we get any of your very specific questions answered, and it's a great opportunity because we have John, who is from Region 9 and is a grants management specialist. If we can't answer your question in this session, we'll definitely get back with you. After this session at 3:30, we'll do the participant submitted short video. So please stick around for that. All right, and I will hand it over to John.
Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon, everyone. and welcome to the Tribal TANF Fiscal Training. First off, I would like to thank the organizers of this training, and I would also like to thank all of our distinguished grantees, program specialists, and others. My name is John Ajiman, and I'm with Office of Grants Management, and I've been with our Office of Grants Management, which is under ACF, for about 6 years now. I'm based in the San Francisco area, and I have experience working with states, territories, and tribal grantees. And some of the programs that I've worked on include TANF childcare, child support, and the refugee grants. So for our training today, these are some of the topics that we'll be covering. I'll be covering, including funding awards, appropriate use of funds, the online data collection system, admin. I'll be discussing our admin costs. Next slide, please. Prior written approval, audit, and then others. Next slide, please. So funding awards for the TANF program, the federal TANF funds are available to grantees at the beginning of the federal fiscal year, which is usually in October. We do issue 4 awards for the fiscal year. The first one being around October, the second one being around January, the third one being around April, and then the final one, which is usually around July. For the tribal TANF funds, there is no physical limitation as far as the award or the fiscal year is concerned. So, which means grantees have the funds to use until all of the funds are expended. And this is a screenshot of the notice of award, and there are some terms here that I'll be discussing. The first one being the appropriation. The appropriation is just basically the grant award number. And so if for example, if you are issuing an award in grant year 2022, it will start with 2022. And the CAN is the common accounting number that we identify the award with. For if it's a grant year 22 award, the CAN number will be the year 2022. And then the next one, this action, which in this screenshot shows 180,035. That is the amount of award that we are issuing for this particular notice. And in other words, that is the one that the funds that we are making available right now to the grantee, and which will be deposited in the payment management system. And then the last column, which is cumulative, which is 720,140. That is the total award that we have issued so far for the grant. Next slide, please. So for the notice of award, thanks to the Grant Solution Unified Experience, now grantees will be able to go into the Grant Solution system and retrieve the awards. I know previously we have to always send awards to grantees, but now if grantees are able to, we have a training here, which when you go to this website that we have here, and then you click on the non-discretionary grant recipients, and there's a video, it's about 23 minutes. If you watch that video, it shows you how you'll be able to retrieve the award letters from the Grant Solution system. Please, if you have any questions after watching the video and you're still having difficulty in retrieving the award, please reach out to either the Grant Solution support team or your fiscal specialist. And I also want to mention here, go ahead, Sam.
Hey, John, just to interject here, we had a question about this specifically. So we put the link here because it's not totally easy to get to this actual page in this video. So if you click that link and then you scroll down to non-discretionary grant recipients and click on that, that video will pop up and it will take you through the steps specifically.
Thank you, Sam. And I just want to also mention here that as far as the awards, it also includes the historical awards. So if you want to grab a TANF award that we issued in 2012, 2015, you can be able to retrieve all of these awards. And then also, lastly, I also want to mention that within this process, you can, there is also some form of alert in it. So you can see where the award process is, the status of the award, or where the award process is in the system. Next slide, please. So the funding award, it comes with terms and conditions, and include several critical documents that we have here. And the one that I think that we do have here, and the one that I think I want to spend some time here, is about the terms and conditions. It's very important that you review the terms and conditions of the TANF award, because in there it shows you some of the things that you are supposed to comply with, which includes the administrative requirements, which comprise of the various 45 CFRs that you have to comply with, the conditions for sub-recipients and sub-grantees, vendors, contracts, and then also financial and program reporting that will be required. And failure to comply with these terms and conditions can result in loss of federal funds. So please, it's important, or there's some part of it that is not clear, please reach out to your fiscal specialist for assistance. Next slide, please. This is the 4 statutory purposes of TANF. And as a general rule, grantees must use TANF funds to assist eligible needy families with a child and to accomplish one of the 4 purposes of TANF. Any use of the federal TANF funds must be consistent with TANF purpose and applicable to TANF rules. So in other words, all allowable expenditures have to be aligned or must meet one of the 4 statutory purposes of TANF. Next slide, please. Recipients may not supplant federal funds. For TANF funds, you cannot use TANF funds to replace or take place of another program. And I'll give an example here. For example, within a tribe, there's a local program that provides education to their clients. And then when you have federal TANF funds, you decide that, okay, maybe there's some kind of shortage of funds for that program. So I'm going to use the TANF funds to fully fund that program. That is a violation of the TANF program terms and conditions, and not allowable. So TANF funds cannot be used to fully fund another program. Also, another aspect of it is subsidizing non-TANF programs. So with a non-subsidizing of a non-TANF program means you are contributing to another program. For example, childcare probably needs some funds to purchase a copier or a vehicle, and they don't have enough funds, and you decide to transfer about $30,000 of TANF funds to the childcare program or child support. That is not allowable because it does not meet the purpose. Again, it does not meet the purpose of TANF. You are providing funding to another program that the TANF program is not going to benefit from. So that is not allowable. But here I want to mention that being said, cost sharing is allowable. For example, if a TANF childcare and child support program, they are in the same building and they need to purchase a copier, all the 3 programs can contribute to purchase that copier, or whether it's a vehicle or another equipment, as long as there's a proper cost allocation methodology that is applied, and then each program is getting its fair share of the cost relative to the benefit that you receive. Next slide, please. So here I'll be discussing allowable expenses, and in determining when expenses are allowable, first of all, as I discussed on the previous pages, you have to ensure that it means that any expenditure have to meet the purpose of TANF or aligns with the purpose of TANF. And the first one here is the expenditure necessary. So if it is necessary, if it meets an important program objective, and it must address an existing need. And when we discuss that expenditure is reasonable if it's in its nature, it does not exceed what that which will be incurred by a prudent person under the circumstances prevailing at the time the decision was made to incur the cost. And I will give some examples of expenditures that will be considered necessary. An example, and these are some of the questions that, as a fiscal specialist, you have to ask, like, before you incur expenditure, whether it's necessary or reasonable. The first one is, do I really need to make this purchase for the award? Is this the least amount I could spend and still meet the needs for the efficient and effective performance of the award? Also, can you reasonably expect to use the amount of the product or services that you are purchasing? Or did you pay a fair price for the items? And then lastly, would you feel comfortable defending this purchase to a taxpayer or to the awarding agency? Next slide, please. Here we have some of the allowable uses, the allowable uses of the TANF expenditure. Next slide, please. And on this page, we also have improper uses of TANF. And here I will discuss one of them, which is eligibility. You cannot provide assistance to families and individuals that are not eligible for the TANF grant. And then also construction. TANF funds cannot be used for the construction or purchase of facilities or buildings. And when I say for the construction or purchase of facilities or buildings, I mean when you are doing major construction, that is putting up a permanent structure. That is not allowed. That's like building, a full house or a building like an office, or putting up any other permanent structure, that's not allowed. But if you have to do repairs or renovations, that is allowed by the TANF grant.
Hey, John, can I interject a question here? We're talking about improper uses, and we just went over supplanting. And then you mentioned cost allocation. And the question was, what would a proper cost allocation look like? And does it have to be submitted to OFA?
The cost allocation, yes, we do receive them. It goes to the CAS, the cost allocation services. That is the department that is responsible for they are the ones that get it, and then when they get it, they forward it to us for review. And I think as far as what a cost allocation, like, we do have some guidance on it. So I can, if I can take the person from me, I could probably send them some form of a guidance or what they can follow for a proper cost allocation plan. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So for TANF, there is required financial reporting, and the financial report that has to be submitted is the ACF 196T. The 196T is submitted in the OOD system, and it has to be submitted every quarter. So regardless of whether you have expended funds or not, you still have to submit a report every quarter. Or in other words, if you have an open grant, if it's a grant that still have funds available in there and all of them have not been expended, you still have to submit a quarterly report. And the report is due 45 days after the end of the quarter. And I think in the subsequent slides, I'll be able to show a diagram that shows the various federal fiscal years and then the due dates for the reports. Previously, grantees were required to submit the federal cash transaction report, but that is no longer required. I know most grantees are probably happy about this because it reduces their administrative burden. So effective April 1st, grantees are no longer required to submit a quarterly cash transaction report. If they have to do their drawdowns, they just have to let PMS just know their expenditures, and then they can just draw that this report is no longer required. Next slide, please. So here is illustration of the federal fiscal year, and then the report due dates. And as I mentioned before, this 1960 has to be submitted electronically in the OLDC system, and is due 45 days after the end of this after the end of each quarter. Next slide, please. So on this page, I'll be discussing the native employment works reporting requirements. So unlike TANF, the native employment works, that one is only one report that is due at the end of the year, which is one I usually due September 28th. Next slide, please.
Hey, John, we're at 15-minute mark, time check.
Okay, thank you. So with the native employment works financial report, previously, they were submitted in the OLD system. That's FY15, and earlier on they were submitted in the OLD system. But from 2016 up to date, it's submitted in PMS. And please, if you are, in order to submit these reports again, you need access to OLDC and then access to PMS. And both of them have their support teams to assist you in that regard. Next slide, please. And oh, please, I want to mention something here. I'm sorry, Sam, if you go back. As far as the Native Employment Works program is concerned, all of the funds are also available to be expended. So you can carry over from year to year until all of the funds are scheduled. It's only when you have expended all of the funds and then submitted a final report, that's when you stop reporting. Next slide, please. So here I'll be discussing grant solutions. And in order to be able to submit the ACF 1960 that is submitted in the OLDC system, and in order to submit that report, you need access to that system. And this is where all of the report, all of the forms for you to use for the reporting, they are in the OLDC system. So you need access to it. And when there's a new fiscal specialist, when you have a new fiscal specialist, please reach out to your the Ogm fiscal specialist, and then they can send you the forms that you have to fill, or you can reach out to Grant Solutions and they can send you the forms that you need to fill, so you will get access to the system. And here we have the support team's information if you need to reach out to them if you have any questions. Next slide, please.
Hey, John, before we move on to this one, can I ask, so a lot of folks that are here today are coming from the program side, and we're talking about the fiscal reports. They may not work on those directly, but can they access those reports? And also, why would they need to, like audits or anything like that?
So yes, like especially for like program directors or managers, yeah, they can access this, and then there is a view only access. So if there are other employees in the department that want to access these reports, they can have the view only. And then sometimes probably is just as another level of approval, so they can just check it to see, as far as like the expenditures that they are reporting, where they are with their expenditures and stuff. So it's also like a good oversight if you have another person that is at least reviewing these reports in the department. And here I want to mention that as far as the reporting for the 1960, it's a 2-person job. And this is to ensure that it meets the standards for segregation of duties, and then also it meets proper internal controls, and then it reduces the risk of fraud or errors. So usually we recommend that one person will do the data entry, so which will involve initializing, saving and validating the report. And then another person will certify, or review the data entered, and then certify, and then sign and then submit the report. Next slide, please. So here in OLDC is an illustration of when you go in and then you put in the data and then you save it. So where the arrow is showing is a report that has been saved. So when you save it, and so the one that is showing is a report that has been saved, that there are no errors and the form is ready to be certified. So after it is saved, the next process is the validation part of it. So then you have to validate it. And then here I want to mention that when you validate it and there are errors, it will not allow you to move forward to certify the report. And usually the errors, the errors come about when, for example, you have exceeded your admin cap, or probably you have more expenditures than your award amount. So these are some of the rare circumstances where you will have severe errors. And when you have that situation, please either reach out to your fiscal specialist and then discuss it to see where the issue is. And then when you have it and it says it's with warning, when it says there's a warning just means that maybe, for example, you are getting close to your admin cap, so it's okay. It will allow you to certify it and submit it with a warning, but not errors. Next slide, please. So this is a screenshot of PMS, and here I want to discuss that you know, as far as when you for your expenditures, you can go to the PMS system and do an inquiry to see how much have been expended for the grant and then how much have been charged down. The authorized, the grant amount, the grant number on the left hand side, which is the grant, that's the grant number, and then authorized means the total of the total amount of awards that have been issued, and then disbursed is just your total expenditures, and then the charge advance is just how much have been drawn down, and then the RS indicates whether the grant is inactive or active. So here I want to mention that if you look at it, the 16 grant and the 17 grant, all of that grant and the authorized funds in that grant have been expended and have been drawn down. So most likely it's ready for closeout, or we've closed it out. That's why it's showing in I, which is inactive. Now, if you look at the 18 and the 19 grant, all of the funds have not been expended yet. That's why it's still showing that it's still active. And here I want to mention that grantees can use the, you know, when you want to do the inquiry, you can use the grant number to do the inquiry. And then also sometimes there might be a lag. There might be a lag sometimes. So maybe it's a good idea to also check with a trial fiscal specialist to get the most up-to-date expenditures. Next slide, please. Open grants. So again, to simplify it, open grants, these are the grants that still have funds available in them, and all of the funds have not been expended yet. So when you have an open grant, you have to keep on reporting. The only time you stop the reporting is when a final report has been submitted. So in the example that we have here, for the quarterly report for FFY 2012 award have to be submitted. Likewise, the quarterly report for FFY 2011 also have to be submitted. But for the third one, which is the FFY 2010, only a final report has to be submitted because all of the funds have expended. Next slide, please. This is a hard copy, for example, of the 1960. It's going to be a little different from what we have in the system, but I just want to just go over a few items here. So over here, line 3A is where you have your administration. And then I just want to say that there are three, I think the line number 1, which is the total federal funds awarded, the total expenditures, which is line number 4, and then unobligated balance, which is line number 6. Those are pre-populated by the system, and the other ones you have to data enter those. And column A is where you put in your federal TANF funds, and then column B is the state contributed MOE funds. And then on the top right-hand corner, if you haven't expended all of the funds yet, and so it's an interim report, then you mark it as quarterly. And then if you have expended all of the funds, then you do mark it as a final. And here I also want to discuss revisions. Usually, revisions for the report, like you could do the revisions until the end of the current quarter. But if it's past the current quarter, you can wait to and then do it on the most recent report. And then just as a reminder that all entries in this report, that they are cumulative. So they have to be carried on from year to year until the end of the report period. Next slide, please.
Hey, John, before I move on, there was a question about the 196T form itself. The question is, how often is the form reviewed and updated? Is there a notification sent out when the form version is updated?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, anytime the form is updated, you know, sometimes, for example, if there's a new column that has been added or so or it is necessary. I mean, it's not like we have to, like every 2 years or 3 years, but you know, when it becomes necessary that we have to do it, and that is done, usually the fiscal specialist will notify grantees of the change, and then they will let them know that yes, those have been updated, and they will actually send them a copy of the form to let them know that there has been any updates, and then if they have any questions. So on this slide here, I'll be discussing availability of funds. So when grantees are submitting financial reports, they have to ensure that they properly report on unobligated balance and then unliquidated balance. Simply, unobligated balance is the amount of funds that have not yet been committed. And then the unliquidated is these are the commitments that have not yet been paid for. Next slide. Here I'll be discussing our administrative costs. So with the Tribal TANF program, there is an admin cap. It's subject to an admin cap. And here we do have examples of various admin costs. And as far as the administrative cost caps are concerned, most of our grantees right now should be operating on the 25% cap since they've been here for years. Usually for a new grantee, it will be 35% for the first year of 35% for the first grant that they receive, and then the second grant will be 30%, and then there's 25% for the subsequent grant and others. So please, you have to make sure that, especially with the reporting, that you are complying with the cap, because if you do exceed the cap, you won't be able to submit, certify or submit the report. And also, I want to mention that the administrative cost does not include direct cost of providing program services. For example, personnel costs for those staff providing program services, including case management, and then information technology systems and computerization, which could be a very huge cost. You know, these are not included in the admin costs. And then also I want to mention that the indirect costs are part of your admin, but regardless of how much you have for your indirect costs, you cannot exceed your admin cap. And I will talk a little bit about the indirect rate and cost in the subsequent slides. Next slide, please. So the indirect cost rate that is negotiated between the tribe and then the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and is considered to be part of the administrative cost component, as I had mentioned earlier on. So sometimes we do get some questions about how come sometimes the indirect cost rate is more than the admin cap, but we have to know that both those two are applied differently. As far as the admin cap for TANF, that one is is based on the total awards of funds. So you multiply by the total award of funding that you receive. While as with the indirect rate, that is, based on your indirect cost pool. And then I want to say that, while maybe information technology cost and others are included in your indirect cost pool, for the admin, you do not include that. Next slide, please. Procurement. So you have to ensure that all procurement transactions are conducted in a manner that provides full and open competition. So if there is a purchase that you have to make, for example, if you need to purchase a vehicle, it's good to ensure that at least you have at least 3 quotes and compare prices to make sure you're getting the fair price for your department. And then also if there's some form of procurement that requires bidding, make sure that you are using the proper bidding, and you can refer to the 45 CFR 75, where they are the procurement, they are to see the prescribed procurement procedures. And you also have to make sure that as a grantee, you do have written procedures for procurement, which also mirrors the procurement in the 45 CFR 75. Next slide, please.
Hey, John, before we move on, just a time check, 30 minutes. And also, if we could go back to the previous slide here. For the competitive, so, years ago, the rule of 3, where you had to have 3 competitive bidders, wasn't necessarily spelled out in the federal regs, but then when the Omni circular came out, that was specific. But just as sort of like a humorous kind of example, you had a tribe where they wanted to bring in an elder to make drums and teach traditional songs. So you're not and they would be a subcon or a contractor, but you're not going to have 3 elders making drums competing for the bid. So there is a way that you can do a sole purpose. So how would a tribe go about doing that, doing the sole purpose?
So for example, right, a tribe is in an area where, for example, they want to contract maybe a special service, and then that service is not available anywhere else, and there's only one person that provides that service. So if that's the case, all they have to do is just document it, the justification, why they went with that just one vendor. All they have to do is just document that in their area, that is the only person that probably provides that service, and then document it. Because when the auditors come and then they are looking at that particular service, and then they are going to question how come there was no competitive bidding also, then you can show them that this was the case of a sole purpose, and that will suffice. So we've actually had a couple of them, depending on the area that you are, that using sole purpose is justifiable. You just have to make sure that you document it. Next slide, please. Prior approval for equipment. So most of the times, when you have to purchase an equipment, it's good to ensure that you are following the prior approval procedures, and this is to ensure that so you don't have any kind of a disallowance or finding, which later on you probably have to pay. So it's a good idea, for example, like if there's something that you need to purchase as a grantee and you are not sure, whether that should be something that you should require private, please, if you are not sure, please reach out to your federal fiscal specialist for assistance. An example of some of the expenditures that require private will include office equipment and furnishings, modular offices, telephone networks, and others. And on the next slide, I'll be talking more about it. So next slide, please. So usually with for some equipment that require private, those are usually capital expenditures that are more than $5,000. Those are the ones that usually require a prior approval. And so you have to submit a prior approval request to the grants officer before you can purchase an item, this type of item. And usually in the letter, it should contain a description of the item being purchased, including the total acquisition cost, taxes, and then the cost of delivery and all of that. And then the reason why it is needed, and this ties to the purpose of the TANF. How is it going to be? How does this purchase satisfy the purpose of TANF? For example, if you need a vehicle to transport your client, and there's justifiable reason because they are in more areas where they don't have access to transportation and you have to purchase a vehicle. For that one, it means purpose of TANF. So these are some of the things we are looking for when we talk about satisfying the purpose of TANF. And then also here, I want to mention that equipment that are purchased with federal TANF funds must be associated with the activity, which is discussed, which meet one of the purpose of TANF. So it's important to know that. And then these costs have to be reasonable, necessary, and then allocable, as I discussed in the previous slide. Next slide, please. And for prior approval, so usually these are additional requirements for prior approval. And usually we recommend that you have at least a minimum of 3 quotes if that's available. But that being said, too, if it's a situation where you are unable to get 3 quotes and there's only one person that you can purchase from, or in an area where you can only get one, then definitely you can use the sole source. And below are just various examples. Next slide, please. Audits. So audits must be conducted for each fiscal year of funding. And then a copy of no later than 30 days following the completion. The lead agency must submit a copy of the report to the Tribal Council, the HHS, Inspector General, and to ACF. And when you do have the auditors, they look at your financial statements to ensure that they are accurate, and then they comply with the terms and conditions of the grant. For example, TANF funds cannot be used for permanent major construction. So if they find out that you're using TANF funds for construction, then that's going to be a finding. So these are some of the terms that they're going to be checking to see, are you meeting the terms and conditions of the grant when they have the audit. And then also they want to make sure that you are complying with other laws and regulations that comes with it, as far as the provision of contracts or other agreements that you have. Next slide, please.
Hey, John, can I interject a few questions on this one real quick?
Yes.
Okay, so for audits, we normally think of audits as on a fiscal side, but do auditors look at any program stuff? How would a Tribal TANF program director be involved in an audit in the process? Oh shoot, I had another good question and it slipped my mind. All right, anyway, if you could tackle those two, thanks.
Okay, so the first one is, how would a program director be involved in the audit, right? Okay. So I think as far as auditors, when they come, right, they do interview the key personnel in the department. So the program director will be a key personnel in the department. So they will definitely be interviewing the program director and the fiscal specialist to know about their internal control procedures that they have, the policies that they have. But I think most of their work is done with reviewing the documents that they have, which is the policies and procedures. That is a key, that's an integral part of it. And then interviewing them on how some of those policies and procedures are implemented. So that's how I can see a travel director being involved in it. And
okay.
And then the second question, please.
I get, well, you kind of answered, like, what would an auditor look at when they come in, and how would a Tribal TANF program director be involved in that process? And then I also, by the way, I remember what I was also going to ask. For TANF and Native Employment Works, are they audited every year, or is there, is it kind of random sampling?
They're supposed to have they're supposed to have an audit for each fiscal year. It's supposed to be every year. They're supposed to have an audit every year. And then here I'll be discussing penalties and sanctions. So, as most of you are aware, if you don't submit the ACF 1960 report on or before the due date, it may result in a withholding of your grant, award in our PMS, which means you will not be able to draw down. And that's the last, we definitely want to definitely avoid that. So please make sure that you are submitting your reports in time. And then as far as before we even get to penalties and sanctions, we will give the grantee a chance to have some form of a corrective action. So, as long as the grantee follows the auditor's recommendation, or if it is a site visit, if it's the grantee follows the grantor's recommendation, then we will not get to penalties and sanctions. Penalties and sanctions are rare. Honestly, that is something that we don't want to get to unless we have no other choice. So I just want to mention that. And if there is a penalty, then one of the tribe will have to replace those funds. For example, if a tribe was receiving $500,000 an award and there was a penalty and the award was reduced to $400,000, the $100,000 will have to be replaced by the tribe. So we still want them to be able to spend the same award amount that they used to spend before. But no, the $100,000 that is in penalty, that will have to be, the tribe will have to be responsible for it, and it have to be reported in the 1960. There's a line of expenditure there called Tribal Experience Fund. So that's where it's reported. And please, if you have any questions about it, you can reach out to your fiscal specialist. Next slide, please. Here we have an illustration of the Office of Grants Management assignments in Region 10, because we do have new staff and they are all over the country. So here is an illustration to see the fiscal specialists that you are assigned to. And, that being said, this is subject to change as people leave, and then we have new people. So please, if you are reaching out to a fiscal specialist and they are not responding, also, please, you can check with your program specialist, and then they can find out from the other OGM counterparts to see, keep you updated as far as going on. And then as far as like the OGM fiscal specialist, we will let you know when this list is updated. We will share that with you and let you know the new staff that are in the new lab, and then the staff that have already left. And here I also want to touch on the 477 grantees. So the 477 grantees, they are assigned a BIA liaison. So if you're a 477 grantee and then you don't know your BIA liaison, please reach out to the ACF program specialist, and they can help to confirm who your BIA contact should be.
Hey, John, can I interject real quick here? So I don't know if it's totally clear in this breakup, but you see there's an array of different people assigned to different regions, and those folks on the OGM side might be in different regions. Is that right? They're not necessarily in R9 and R10.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I'm in Region 9, so I only have Region 9, but that's not the same for the other specialists.
Yeah. And then my other question for this would be, for 477 tribes, they have the BIA as their contact, but if they had questions about very specific use of funds, could they still reach out to OGM?
Yes, that's correct. And Sam, thank you for that question. Yes, they can still reach out to the OGM fiscal specialist if they need any technical assistance. It's just, I think the only thing with the BIA is they don't submit a report with that, like the other grantees have to submit the reports, but as far as like if they need that technical assistance, they could still reach out to the OGM fiscal specialist. Next slide, please. So here is also the OGM assignments for Region 9. And again, these are subject to change, and then we'll keep you updated. And like Sam also mentioned, these fiscal specialists are spread all across the country. So if you need, if you are unable to reach your fiscal specialist, please let us know, and we'll be able to assist you in that regard. Next slide, please. These are resources for Tribal TANF, as well as program resources that are available, fiscal resources that are available, and then the questions and answers. The questions and answers, those are particularly very helpful. These are some of the most frequently asked questions that we've answered. So if you have if you have questions, it's a good idea to check out this resource. And then we also have the policy, laws and regulations. Next slide, please. So that brings me an end to this presentation, and now I'll open it to the floor. So if there are any more questions.
Yeah, John, I had a few questions that were in the chat. So this is about micro purchases. Can you confirm the limits for micro purchases, small purchases, and formal solicitations?
The amount for small purchases, I have to, I think it was updated. I have to check the cost principles again. So that's something I can check on, and I can share with the grantee. So please, I'll take it and then share with them.
Okay, and then for the 3 quotes, is there a minimum threshold for having to get 3 quotes for services?
So that is what we recommend, that at least you have 3, but if you can have, if you have more, it's even better, but it's just at least we want to see that at least you are having 3 too. And we do this to ensure that you are comparing prices, so you are getting a fair deal for your department or your program.
Okay, so like, say for example, I think the question is kind of getting more to like, is there a monetary threshold for doing that? Like, if it's like basic services or a simple contract, is there a level that you would have to be competitive?
If it is, based on the amount, I would say probably if it is something probably more than 5,000 and up, probably, then, but maybe for supplies that are within the $100, those probably, it wouldn't react by right. If something that is probably more than 5,000, that would probably at least make an effort to get at least 3 quotes.
Okay, and then there was a comment in the chat, but I think it could be a good question. OMB issues an audit supplemental annually, advising on key areas of focus that auditors might use for their review. Where would grantees find that audit supplemental?
Where would they find audit supplemental? Is that a question?
Yeah.
I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
No, sorry, I'm just going to interject. I don't think I think he was, Glenn was providing some clarification, and it is on the OMB website is what I think he's letting us know. So he was just providing us a resource. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah. A question, is this a fiscal audit? Well, when an auditor comes in, they look at fiscal and program. Is that right, John?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They look at both.
Yeah.
These are the expenditures and then the policies associated with those two.
However, this is a good point to bring up, because if you had a program director that was involved in the audit process and say they had a finding related to the most common one is like missing reports, even though the director might not be submitting those reports, they're going to have to resolve that. They're going to have to, find out, what years were missing, how to get those submitted, resolve the issue so that there's not a sustained finding. So the program people will be involved in that aspect.
Right. And usually when there's an audit, what they do is at the entrance conference, they do make them aware that as they go through the process of the audit, they will keep the key, the key personnel informed of the issues that they do find. And when after the audit, when they have their exit conference, they invite the key people, which includes the program director or managers, and make them aware of the issues that they find. So, and then when you have to have a corrective action, it has to be a team effort. It has to be the program director, the fiscal specialist, and others involved to be able to come up with a corrective action plan.
Mm-hmm. Will we get copies of these slides? Yes.
Yes.
They should be on the website associated with this conference.
They're on Visible, yeah.
Visible, yeah. Okay, here's another question. What is the disposal process for a vehicle purchased with either federal TANF funds or a mix of federal and state TANF funds? What are our options?
So if federal TANF funds are involved, and you only do so basically you did use the federal TANF funds to purchase the vehicle, whether fully or partially, and you have to dispose of it, you have to reach out to your fiscal specialist, and then they have to send you disposal instructions. So when you get the disposal instructions and then you fill it out, and then the fiscal specialist will recommend approval before that vehicle can be disposed of.
All right, I think we hit all the questions that were in the existing chat. We have a few minutes until 3:30. If there's any specific questions, I could actually pepper John with a few rhetorical questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll do that. Actually, I have a question about like establishing cash assistance levels. You know, I get a lot of questions from program directors about that. Like, can they increase the levels? Can they be, larger than the state cash assistance grants? Non-recurring short-term benefits, like how did they determine that cap? And then also like staff salaries. A lot of tribes will mention that their staff salaries have been static for years. Like could a tribe increase those, and how would they go about establishing fair levels?
So, and this comes under compensation, which is in the 45 CFR 75. So for compensation, as far as the salary levels, right, they have to make sure that they are kind of complying with the market fare of salary, or like comparable prices, right? So they can compare other tribes, like they can make a comparison, right, with other tribes and see how much is, or what is the fair market value, right, for that salary. And then based on that, if for example you have let's say like a program director, right, and say the average salary, right, or the median maybe is around 80,000, right, and then you have so you want to make sure that you kind of like it's comparable to what the market prices, you know what I mean, and you are not overpaying too much. But it just, all of this also have to be justified. Like, what is the justification, which would include also the cost of living in that area. All of those things have to be taken into account for you to be able to come up with that salary. And then again, it has to be reasonable. If most program directors, right, in comparable areas are being paid 100,000, and then you are paying your program director maybe 160 or 170, then probably that would not be reasonable. You see what I mean? So, but all of these things also comes with justification, how you can also justify it.
Yeah. All right, great. All right, I think we're coming up the bottom of the hour. Perfect timing. I want to thank John from Region 9 for taking the time. And then if you have any further questions, you can reach out to your OGM staff assigned to your particular tribe, and there's a that spreadsheet will show you the breakout. And I just want to thank everyone for their questions. And yeah, there's the link to this PowerPoint in Visible. All right. Hey, thanks, John.
Thank you, Tucson. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and then we're moving into participant submitted short videos, about 15 minutes. And this is a good mix of different videos, some just saying hello, a quick walkthrough through the office, some participant testimonies, so a good variety. And I'm going to try to share my screen and go through this PowerPoint here. I have a million things up and the smallest screen ever. Hold on. Okay. Share screen, share sound. And then from the beginning. Okay. Now this one doesn't have audio, so I'm going to do a quick voiceover. So this is Coeur d'Alene. They are up in, I believe the office is Plummer, Idaho, which is northern Idaho, literally 35 minutes away from me. So if they ever had any IT issues, I could drive over. And the way I drive, I could probably make it there in 30 minutes. Yeah. And this is they have the tribal complex headquarters in Plummer, but they're on the south side of the road there. Thanks, Aaliyah. California Tribal TANF Partnership.
Hi, welcome to California Tribal TANF Partnership in Chico, California.
Here at TANF, we offer supportive services including childcare, mileage, vehicle repair, and housing assistance, along with many more that help families reach their goal of self-sufficiency.
A valuable component of our program is the youth services. We offer supportive services that covers clothing, extracurricular activities, education, incentives, employment, and culture. These services give them the tools and skills needed to flourish later in adulthood.
We are able to host classes on beading, natural remedies, brain sticks, exercise, healthy living, financial management, and a host of other classes intended to help our participants and community members grow culturally, develop employment skills, and gain an education, and mostly find success on their path to self-sufficiency and healthy families.
We are CTTP.
And Torres Martinez, they sent in a bunch of videos. I had to pick two of the videos they sent. Hook in that tribal council.
The moment I found out I was going to be a dad, and I knew that it was no longer me in this world I was looking after, so I really had to push myself to not look for a job, but more of a career, and CITC really helped with that. I kept on running into roadblocks because in my work history, I didn't have working a job for a year. But the reason that is because all my jobs are temporary or contract work or seasonal. So it's really looked hard to find a job. And that's when I outreached to CITC to help them look and update my resume and just give me some new insight on how to put myself more available in the market for job hunting. And it really just shaped me to push myself and to challenge myself to okay, let's get over these roadblocks. I don't have a college degree, but I have experience. Let's look at that. CITC helped me achieve a job that was specifically made for me. I work for Native Peoples Action Community Fund as a rural engagement coordinator. I outreach and do cold calls to rural Alaska, specifically centered around how they find ways between traditional ways of life and voting. Like now with this new job working remote, I'm able to bring my son to the park, go to his school. I feel just really appreciative, lucky. It's not a handout or anything like that. It's just maybe like a hand up. They're offering help. And that's kind of one thing I want to take away is the stigma of asking for assistance or help, because there comes to a point in everybody's life where you have to ask for help.
And the ACF fan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mika Smith, and I'm a program specialist out of the Region 9 office. But I am working here in my home office, and I'm really excited to be able to have the time together with everyone for our regional meetings. I wish we could be in person, but since we can't, or since we aren't for this particular meeting, let me take the opportunity to introduce you to my dog, Mookie. Mookie, say hi.
Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Julie Fong. I'm the Region 9 TANF Program Manager, and I'd like to welcome you to the Region 9 and 10 Tribal TANF TA meeting. We're so glad that you've joined us, although we do really look forward to seeing you in person sometime in the near future. I'm coming to you from my remote office, which is actually my kitchen. I'm sure many of you are working from your homes, your kitchens, your dining room tables, and we're just really glad that you've joined us. I hope you have a snack and your cozy slippers on and are ready to learn with us. We're so glad you're here. Thank you. Good to see you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mika Smith.
I wonder what Sam is doing. Can I come in?
Sure. I'm just working real hard on Tribal TANF. Hi. Yeah, so this is what I normally wear when I'm working Tribal TANF, fighting for the people. And this is my home office. My name is Sam Stitt. I am a Tribal TANF specialist for Region 10 based out of the Seattle office, but I live now in Spokane Valley near the Idaho border. I am a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I do traditional regalia. I work with the tribe creating historically correct outfits. So what I'm wearing right now is a traditional warriors outfit from the 1800s, late 1700s, early 1800s period. And most of the items you see I made myself. I do traditional Muskogean silver work, bead work, feather work. All right, this is my home office. All right, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Seneschal, and I'm an ACF Region 9 Program Specialist. I'm currently working out of my remote office, which is in the San Francisco North Bay area. I just wanted to welcome you to the meeting. Excited to spend the next few days with you. And I thought I would introduce you to a couple of my office mates who sometimes like to join me. On my lap is Panda Bear, and down below out of the camera is my friend Zumi. They're both really good at protecting me from delivery men, the neighborhood cats, and the occasional construction worker. and I'm hoping they don't join us over the next 3 days. But if they do, I thought you might like to see who's visiting us. So take care. Excited to spend some time with you, and looking forward to the next 3 days. Thanks.
All right, well, that was our show. I want to thank everyone for submitting videos. We thought we would do that because, well, everyone's tired of virtual, but maybe we could just kind of humanize it and share. And it was also good to get a peek inside offices as well. I'm hoping next year it'll be in person, our next conference. But again, thank you, everyone. And that was spot on timing. So the next thing we're going to go into is the day 2 wrap up and closing with Jennifer from Region 9.
Hi, all. Well, thanks again for joining us for day 2 of our session. On behalf of the OFA team, we just wanted to give a shout out to all of the wonderful presenters and participants that helped to make today so wonderful, especially for those folks that were facilitating and moderating our peer-to-peer sessions, and those folks that jumped in to share in the conversation, and to John, Ogm, and Sam for helping to provide a context for fiscal management in Tribal TANF. We really appreciate it and the resources that they've provided. We hope that these sessions have given you a chance to connect, to reflect, and to gather some ideas and strategies to move forward. We also wanted to give a big shout out to all the folks that submitted the videos. That was really fun. It was so great to see people, participants, offices, pets, and we really do hope we get to see you guys again soon, though. Nothing takes the place of seeing you guys in person. As Sam mentioned earlier, the presentations, PowerPoints, handouts, and such are on Bizibo. You can click on the specific session in Bizibo to grab those materials. If you need any assistance maneuvering through there, you can reach out to your program specialist who'd be happy to help you find those. I also wanted to just do a really quick preview for tomorrow. We have 3 sessions. The first is a panel discussion on leveraging relationships to expand services and support for Tribal TANF families. Following that, there will be a session on strengthening partnerships between Tribal TANF and child welfare, which will explore available resources and strategies for increasing coordination. And then we're going to end the day with a wonderful inspirational speaker, Tanaya Winder. We hope you're all able to join us again. And before we act meeting, we do have for you that will help you take the time to your feedback is really helpful for us to know how this meeting went for you, what worked, and what areas we might be able to look at in the future. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And if you can, the poll is up.